I personally think that the guy has to love the woman just a little bit more. I feel like straight men need to feel like they cannot lose the woman they're with in order to not lose them. You feel like you can do better as a man than the woman you're with, you will go and find better.
From men hooking up with tons of women once they make a bit of money in their 30s to guys having to worship the ground women walk on. We're going to talk about it all today. So let's not waste any time and get into the mess.
What's your body count?
I have a body count of 6.
3.
16.
2.
44.
I don't even keep track. I don't know.
Over 100?
Listen, gentlemen never kiss and tell.
Why is it okay for you to go sleep around with everyone else?
Because it's harder for me.
Obviously not. Because I mean, I got 3 and you got 44. And even if it is easier or harder for me, it doesn't matter. If I came up to you and told you, hey, I got like 40 to 50 bodies, you'd be like, hell no, she's ran through. But you're just as ran through.
Exactly.
But nobody says anything.
No, he's not ran through. He's the one running through.
You're telling me you can go around and bust in 44 females, but I can't go around and let 44 men bust in me.
Because I'm dominating them, you're being dominated.
What if I choose to dominate them?
That's not how male and female work.
To me, it's just common sense that if something's harder to do, the more people will congratulate you for it. So why wouldn't this apply to sex? I get that sex can be seen as this magical experience by some people, but I think the rule still applies. When a man's able to hook up with a woman, it's usually because he's had to prove himself in some way, but this isn't necessarily the case for her. I'd even go as far as to say that the way in which the act of sex plays out is an act of domination and submission, as it's the woman submitting her body to the man. But hey, you might see it differently, so let me know in the comments. Anyway, whether someone thinks it's okay for a guy or girl to rack up a high body count is up to the individual, but for the most part, women are less likely to think ill of a man who slept with a lot of women than the other way around.
Why don't they date men that are broke?
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, we have inherited this mating psychology from our distant ancestors who were very much more reliant on men for things like provisioning, resource access, and even protection than what contemporary women need. And this is because throughout most of our evolutionary history, we spent our lives, having to be pregnant regularly, lactating, caring for young children, and we're very heavily dependent on the ability of our partner to gain access to things like food and the other resources that we're not able to get access to when we are, very pregnant or dealing with young children. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone hunting before or met a 2-year-old, but like the two things don't mix, right? The children are loud. They're not going to allow you to sneak up on a buffalo. It's not an ideal situation for women. So women historically have been very dependent on men for resources. And we've inherited that brain because over the course of evolutionary history, women who would have placed an emphasis on, choosing partners who have these kinds of qualities, they would have been more likely to have surviving offspring who then passed that tendency or that preference onto their offspring, who'd pass that preference down to their offspring. And so contemporary human women, even though we're able to gain access to resources of our own, we still have that preference, right? We've inherited that preference from our successful ancestors because women who had that preference would have performed better than women who didn't pay attention to that sort of thing.
This time around, I don't have any issues with what she had to say, and it just makes sense to me as to why men and women have developed certain behaviors. Even though the world is changing very fast, our biology and preferences haven't changed, and they won't change for quite some time.
You said in your 20s, you was having fun. Mm-hmm. Would you say that you bamboozled a bunch of men?
Hell yeah!
Okay, fair. So we're in agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know why men in their 20s can't bamboozle women? Because we don't got no money.
Period.
So you spend all of our 20s getting bamboozled, a beautiful woman like you, who we may have thought like that could be my wife, and you bamboozled us in our 20s. Now a nigga got money now.
It's time to do the bamboozling.
It's time to do the bamboozling. And what happens is when a woman is now in her position, late 20s, early 30s, she's like, I'm ready to be someone's wife.
Yeah.
Well, now you finna get bamboozled. And I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is that you had your time to bamboozle. A man can't bamboozle until he got the resources to do some bamboozling. Show me a black man in their early 20s who don't come from a prominent family who got resources to bamboozle. Finally, when they make some money, I'm finally a VP of my job. I'm 30. Yeah. Wait a minute. I can do all the things that I watched that woman do with that other guy that I like. So now I'm gonna do that to these women, and I feel like women get upset when a man does it, but then they'll openly say, like you just said in your 20s, I was bamboozling nigga.
I will say though, in response to what the guy first said, there are loads of men in their 20s who get a lot of play with women. It's not just about the money or resources they have access to. If a guy has never been good with women, he won't become an instant maverick just because he's got a bit of money in his pocket. There are a lot of guys who are making good money who still don't have much luck with women, and some of them who do end up getting some action get taken to the bank because they fall head over heels in love with the first chick that shows them attention. My advice to guys who are working on their purpose and trying to get to the money is to also work on your social skills and ability to connect with women. And while you're doing this, you should expect to fall on your ass over and over again. But at least by the time you're in a financially secure position, you're not a fish out of water.
One thing that I stand by is that the relationship will only work if the guy likes the girl more than the girl likes the guy. And let me break it down for you. So for a guy, it's important to him how he feels in the relationship. So obviously he needs to be in love with the girls because that's how he should feel. But for a girl, how the guy makes the girl feel matters for her. So when a guy is in love with her, he would literally do anything for her. So then it makes her feel like appreciated. So that way she's like, okay, like I like him. So then he needs to like be obsessed with the girl. So the guy won't leave the relationship as long as he loves the girl, and the girl won't leave the relationship as long as she feels loved.
Whether or not a girl should love a guy more or vice versa isn't something I've completely made my mind up on. But what I can say is, if a woman's genuinely invested and in love with the guy she respects, she's not going to step out of the relationship and bang some other dude. Anyway, before I get too much into this, let's watch the next clip as it's along the same lines as this one.
Do you think a man needs to love a woman more in order for the relationship to be healthy and for the guy to stay?
That's a really good question.
I think it should be equal. I think equal is
Okay.
the healthiest. I'm like a 50-50.
I personally think that the guy has to love the woman just a little bit more. I feel like straight men need to feel like they cannot lose the woman they're with in order to not lose them. You feel like you can do better as a man than the woman you're with, you will go and find better. Whereas women, I think, are very much like, we're into this person, we're going to invest in this person.
You're right. I see what you're saying.
You're like, I am never going to find somebody as great as this person.
Right.
And I don't know if women necessarily need that in order to commit and
That's
stay
interesting.
long term.
Girls less often say I met my dream man.
You know
Guys
what?
say I met my dream
Yeah,
girl.
the
You're right.
healthiest
You're right.
relationships,
That
I'm
is
like, the woman was the
interesting.
catch and you are just fucking lucky to be in her aura.
No, you're right.
When she said that she feels like a man must feel like he can't lose the woman he's with in order to not lose her, goes against pretty much every experience I've ever had, and I'm sure there are loads of guys who feel the same way. And after that, she even goes on to say that if a man thinks he can do better than the woman he's with, he'll go out and do so. And while there's some truth to this, this is the exact behavior that women display all the time. When a guy treats his partner like she's totally above him, almost as if he wouldn't be shit without her, seems to me to be the fastest way to lose her respect and admiration. If he's the one who feels super lucky to be with her and she isn't giving off that same energy, it can start to come off as needy, and if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have any options. And we all know that when it looks like a man isn't wanted or desired by any other woman, it can be off-putting to the woman he's with. This whole thing about who should love each other more is unclear to me, but I feel like it should be closer to a 50-50 thing as opposed to something like a 60-40. And while there was some support for this whole notion in the comments, people largely seemed to be divided on the whole thing, and this is what some of them had to say. Until she gets bored being loved too much and wants something else. I've been in such a relationship, and we ended up at the point where he did everything for me, and I wasn't interested at all. He liked me more, but it didn't last because I'm no man's piece. What do you guys think about this though? And do you even think there's a clear answer to this question?
There is nothing sexier to me than a guy who is emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, but that's a different thing. Emotionally intelligent and a guy that's emotional, two different things.
What does emotional mean to you?
If men actively go, I had a cry, 90% of women are turning off, bro.
Are they?
100%. For example, if me and you were on a date and you're like, oh my God, I've had a terrible day, I had to have to cry on a bus here, I'd be like, oh, you're right. Whereas you'd go, oh, this loser.
If you had said exactly what I'd said to you, I'm not going to lie, I'd find it really discombobulating because I've never heard a man, talk like that. And what you've just done is you've just highlighted how easy the hypocrisy in society, right? The double standards. If a guy said or verbatim the same thing to the girl, I don't want to say I'd judge the guy, but I would find it odd because guys never do that. Guys never talk that way.
I don't subscribe to the belief that guys need to cry to be healthy men.
But I'm not saying guys need to cry to be
but
healthy
like
men.
people are like, oh, it's all right to have a cry. Yeah, cool, man, it's all right to have a cry.
People love to say how good it'd be for men to cry, especially in front of their partners. But a lot of guys who've made themselves vulnerable like this have had to learn the hard way, myself included. After having that shit thrown back in your face makes you never want to do it again, which results in guys never feeling like they can open up to someone. When he talked about the girl or guy having a cry on the bus, the reason why guys would be quick to console a woman is because of their protective instincts. I'm not saying that women don't have protective instincts, but it's definitely less natural for them to jump to the defense of a man they don't know. If you've been with someone for a while, being vulnerable most likely isn't going to kill your relationship. But if you're only in the early stages, you'll probably be better off turning to your guy friends for support. At least that's what's worked out best for me in the past. Anyway guys, that's about it for today. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And drop your thoughts in the comments to let me know what you thought about all this.